So the Simpsons reference that I was alluding to was the episode The Joy of Sect, and that came out in like 1997, I want to say. And so it's about the Simpsons joining a cult. And it's
oh my god!
It basically was like Heaven's Gate. It's like they all wore the robes and everything. The leader, ma'am, and they have the eyes, and they can't agree.
Is that what you're talking about?
So a sunrise in California. There's nothing like. I would think a sunset.
Also, this one is interesting too.
We need Grumpy Greg. Steve is potentially coming on Thursday. We'll just put that out there now.
We don't, but don't be upset if it doesn't happen. Yeah. You know, Steve's got a lot of stuff on his plate. No,
Steve is definitely, listen, you want to see two different ends of the spectrum, Andrew. We had Brian today. Steve is entering that territory now where he's like, nah, fuck voting. No, that's not going to solve it.
Yeah. But if he lived here, he'd vote for me.
Yes. Well, I think he would. But I think you're going to have that with if somebody like Brian is saying,
I know. I've said it a million times. If we had open primaries here, Debbie would have been gone so long ago. There wouldn't be any need for any of this. Peter and I would have never met. It would have been a whole different trajectory. If we had open primaries, she would have been gone after like her first maybe 2
Bringing
terms.
all of these people together in such a classy way. All right, last thing before we go.
I really have to go.
I know you got to go and make this clip. So those of you who have been paying attention, stop thinking that our president is going to be doing anything good.
I'm not kidding you. I will stand up and leave on you. I'm letting you all know this. I have an appointment, and I told him I have a hard stop of 3 minutes ago.
What is your red line with Prime Minister Netanyahu? Do you have a red line? For instance, would invasion of Rafah, which you have urged him not to do, would that be a red line?
It is a red line, but I'm never going to leave Israel.
All right.
The defense of Israel is still critical. So there's no red line. I'm going to cut off all weapons so they don't have the Iron Dome to protect them. They don't have.
What in the frick is he talking about? Honestly, you come up with a statement of, well, that's he's like trying to do his Godfather. Oh, it's a red line, but they could do whatever they want. And that is really, we'll play a little bit more of this, but it's just so obvious that it's the wishy-washy shit. It's like people were saying that, well, you think it would be better than Trump? Trump says, well, you know what? At least he's honest about what they're trying to do. You are saying one thing and doing something completely different. And by the way, they're going to invade Rafah.
That port they're building was already in plan long before any of this. It has absolutely nothing to do with getting aid in. In fact, the amount of trucks that they had to bring in to start building the port, if those trucks were actually bringing the aid, you wouldn't need the port for the aid. See, that's the thing. If the trucks can come in to build the port, then why aren't you bringing aid in that way? Because the port has nothing to do with aid.
Before we go, Tony Clifton decided to hop on at the last minute to let you know.
Tony.
Or Coach, probably was Coach Duperville, so there you go.
That's what I thought.
But there's red lines that if he crosses, you cannot have 30,000 more Palestinians dead. As a consequence of going after. There's other ways to deal with the trauma caused by Hamas. It's like.
But they're going to die because there is famine-related disease that has covered 1 million people.
They're all going to die at some point because how are they not? There's no healthcare, there's no water, there's no electricity. Like what do you think inevitably happens to people in the desert without food?
And it's so typical. So apparently some of the aid packages that were supposed to land on the waterfront the other day, a handful of them didn't open up. 5 people got killed because it landed on them.
And by the way, food drops. If you look up what any aid organization says or people who are experts in this, food drops are simply just like a gratuitous stunt. They do not serve anywhere near the level that needs to be served. And I have to go, guys. So Peter will have to finish this up without me. So I will see you guys on Thursday.
All righty, I'll finish the video.
I have to go. I told you.
Right. So I'm going to do a pitch for everybody before we go, but let's finish out this clip here with the President of the United States.
Okay, well, look, the first time I went over, I sat with them and I sat with the work cabinet. I said, look, don't make the mistake America made. America made a mistake. We went after bin Laden until we got him, but we shouldn't have gone into Ukraine. I mean, we shouldn't have gone into the whole.
I guess that was a slip of tongue there. That's the problem with war. And it's only going to get worse.
Thing in Iraq and Afghanistan wasn't necessary. It just caused more problems in the race than it cured.
I noticed the look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber and you saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock at seeing her But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect.
You are treating people with disrespect because we have a policy in this country that puts political opportunism on the heads of people that are trying to survive, that are trying to get into this country. Now, one can debate the merits of that and whether that's necessary. But as I will always maintain, the biggest reason we're facing a border crisis is because labor is feeling their oats in this country for the first time in a long time. And the powers that be, the multinational corporations that actually run the country, they have decided that, no, we're just going to open up the floodgates because we want cheap labor, because that is how you maximize profits. And since we have no real labor laws in this country, especially at the federal level, then what the hell's the point? And even if there's laws in place, we'll just break them. And that's what they've been doing. And they want to hone in on this tragedy that happened in Georgia and basically surmise that that's what it's all about. That this person who did come into this country illegally, we can call it what it is. You don't want to call them illegals, whatever. Dehumanizing people is a whole other story, and that's not right. But this young girl who was killed, I believe she was a nursing student, and they're going to hone in on this. So this is one thing that the conservatives do. They hone in on this one thing. They say, you see, this is what happened, and it's all because of Joe. It's his fault. Now, the truth is, none of you want to get this fixed. You don't. You don't want to get it fixed because, again, it's not good for business. That's it. What's good for business is as cheap labor as you can possibly find. We'll finish it up.
Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing. We have to control the border and a more orderly flow, but I don't share his view at all.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
You were caught on a hot mic after your State of the Union address talking to Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Senator Michael Bennet saying, quote, I told him, Bibi, and don't repeat this, but you and I are going to have a come to Jesus meeting. What do you mean by that?
What I meant was, it's an expression used in the southern part of my state, meaning a serious meeting. And it was, I've known Bibi for 50 years, and he knew what I meant by it.
So what's the come to Jesus part? What tough love are you going to give to the prime minister?
What's happening is he has a right to defend Israel, a right to continue to pursue Hamas, but he must pay more attention to the innocent lives being lost as a consequence of the actions taken. He's hurting, in my view, he's hurting Israel more than helping Israel by making the rest of the world, it's contrary to what Israel stands for. And I think it's a big mistake. So I want to see a ceasefire.
I think I'm centered now. Am I centered now? Okay, there you go. I think you're seeing an example of what happens once the president is in a position where he has to speak and, you know, is giving these sort of off-the-cuff remarks about what's going to happen. I got to tell you, this timeline we're living in is very, very rough. And when this infighting is happening, and, you know, obviously everybody in the chat has a different opinion about what's going on. The working people are always meant to suffer for the desires of the people who control the power structure in this country and around the world. And that's sort of the essence of the whole conversation, because if we're not able to bring people together from all different walks of life in the political arena, then we are heading for a no-win situation. That's why we cross-pollinate with other people that we don't necessarily share the same ideals with. But that's important, because it is an us against them scenario at this point. Working people must come together. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be revolution. But what it does mean is that labor must stand firm.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, Please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.